we had extra t-shirts, like that green kind, within the yard. So I took on the challenge, just a donation, order, whatever. Well, it was very, it's beautiful.
Okay. It's
Family too.
7:30. I'm calling the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Clawson for Thursday, October 19th, 2023. Can everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nick, can you call the roll, please?
Miss Cindy Smith,
Yes. Here.
Mr. Carpenter. Here. Ms. Perkins,
Here.
Mr. Erland,
I turned it on.
Mr. Hildebrand. Miss Diane Smith.
Present. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the regular minutes from September 21st, 2023. Everybody should have received those in their packet.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the regular minutes from September 21st, 2023 as listed.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Nick, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter. Yes. Ms. Perkins,
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carried. So before we get to the next item on the agenda, do we have to open up a public hearing again, or because we had the public hearing in September?
So the published public hearing has already occurred, so that has been met. You do have the ability to open up a public hearing for both of these items if you wish.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is for 850 North Rochester Road, a variance from zoning ordinance section 4.42.a to allow for an automobile repair garage within 200 feet of a residentially zoned district. Is there somebody from the applicant wishing to speak? If you could just come to the podium and then state your name and address.
Good evening. My name's Gus Wilson. Our address is 3841 Green Hills Village Drive in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm also here with Brett Flory. He is so I'm the developer and he is the architect. My colleague was here a month ago, Tim Dearman, and I won't go into the full Caliber spiel because I know everyone here has heard it before, but I did want to just touch on a few points. When describing Caliber, it's good to start with what they're not. They're not a pull apart junkyard with wrecked cars. They're not a tire shop with loud air guns. They are a sophisticated company that takes pride in its community. Because of their size, they're in almost 30 states, and that's over 13 or 1,400 locations. They're scrutinized by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, more than others, and therefore at the top of their game when it comes to environmental compliance. So much so that they even hire a third party to come and inspect their stores to make sure they are compliant. All work takes place indoors in a conditioned space, so you're not going to hear noise during the week, and you're definitely not going to hear noise over the weekend because they are closed on Saturdays and Sundays. Some other things to point out is they don't store any totaled vehicles at all. Once a vehicle is deemed totaled, it is on a car and sent away immediately. My understanding is there were some concerns that were brought up in last month's meeting, and I did just want to say that Caliber has 3 different ways that they like to have their business. They have their green fields, which is patch of land. We go and we build a building for them. They have their brown fields, which is more like retrofits, where they come in, we buy a building that needs some work, and that existing business moves out. We move in, and we run business as normal under the Caliber Collision umbrella. Then there is the acquisition side where they acquire an existing business. This falls under the brownfield retrofit side. And so I just want to be clear that the existing business that's there now is not going to be there when we come in and build this Caliber or reconfigure the building to be nicer for Caliber Collision. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Brett Flory, who can go into some more information about the site plan and any questions you guys may have. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Brett Flory. I'm with the architect on the project, and I do most of Caliber's work all across the country for the last decade or so. I have some, I don't know, can I hand these out?
Is it the site plan?
Have
that
they
was
seen it?
presented? It was in their packet.
The
I can
rendering?
share it on the screen as
Okay.
well.
Well, if you want, I have some, I can hand it to you if you want, but we did some 3D renderings and kind of show what it's going to look like, but so Caliber, Gus kind of hit on it, but Caliber is the largest collision repair company in the world. They have like over 25,000 employees. They actually have almost 1,700 stores. They are the industry leader and they work with all the major insurance companies. They don't open a shop unless the insurance company tells them they want to be at that location. So all their shops are successful. They pay well. You know, their painters make six figures right off the bat. They'll make over $100,000 a year. They try to buy all their parts local. They're a good neighbor and a good community company to have. They give back and do a lot for the community, but they this is going to be a collision repair shop, so all the work's going to be done inside the building. And they don't do any work outside the building. They'll install a new paint booth that'll exceed all the EPA, federal, state, and local requirements for air quality. And they take the environment very seriously. Like Gus said, they have a company that they work with that keeps them in compliance, all their stores in compliance. But basically, they consider themselves a neighborhood service, so we do locate next to residential areas quite frequently. So this is kind of a typical thing that we do here to try to explain, who they are and what they do and why they'll be a good neighbor. We've done sound studies and air quality studies that show that the air that comes out of the paint booths is cleaner than the air you breathe walking down the street. And since they do all the work inside the building, there's really no additional sound being added to the ambient sound that's already there, on the street. So there is a brick masonry screen wall out there already that we plan to leave, and then we install the 8-foot wide landscape buffer along the entire masonry screen wall that separates the residential zoned area from the you can kind of see it there. But so maybe go to the 3D aerial. There we yeah. Yeah, you can kind of see how we're planting some of those giant arborvitae trees all along there. So it'll create a landscape buffer along the entire distance of the property line, whereas we're between residential and commercial. We'll be, cleaning it up, repainting it, it'll look as close to new as we possibly can when we get done with it. So this is something that we feel like is a good location. They want to be in this location. They want to be in your community. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board for either applicant? No.
So if we don't grant the variance, the existing company that's there right now, they can go on operating as business as normal, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it doesn't have an expiration date on the current variance.
Correct, because they're currently existing there, so they're non-conforming use unless there's a variance granted.
Right.
And this will actually be a much cleaner operation than a mechanical repair, because the Caliber doesn't repair engines. They don't change oil. They don't do any of that. They're just strictly body repair. And so it's cleaner.
Are there any other questions?
Y'all answered them for me last time you were here, so
Okay,
I appreciate the follow-up with the 3D renderings and the drawings, because I know that this still has to go to planning, right? So they didn't even have to. Oh, do that. That's much appreciated.
Yes, and we can touch on that a little bit later when you guys are getting prepared. Once you have all your questions answered, we can add to that a little bit more. Unless you're ready now.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
No, thank you for your time and
thank you.
presentation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll let Andy.
Yeah, so the applicant did provide, you know, some pretty noteworthy effort to be able to screen the residential properties, you know, cutting into their own property to provide a garden bed or a planting area for arborvitae trees. Because, you know, I think in my opinion, it does have a direct kind of influence on the variance request at stake. This is something that you could put in your condition that the site plan, when developed, provide, you know, make sure that they provide a screening method similar to what's presented in this packet. If you want to just ensure that that gets put into the site plan when it goes to site plan review. There's a lot of nonconformity, structural nonconformities on the site. So I just would not want some kind of a ruling on a structural nonconformity to take place and them not be obliged to put that arborvitae greenbelt into their plan. So I think so long story short, if you do want to see that arborvitae you know, planting strip there along the property line, I advise you just add that to a condition of approval that says, you know, with the addition of the arborvitae, greenbelt screening in, you know, complying with the site plan as presented. I think that would be a good condition to add to ensure it gets done.
What other structural nonconformities are there?
Without giving it like a full review, you know, I'm just, those are things like number of parking spaces or like pavement setbacks, you know, building setbacks, things like that. I honestly don't know if there are structural nonconformities. I'm just saying the hypothetical when a plan gets put through a review process. There's a lot existing on that site right now that is, you know, could be deemed non-conforming because it's been established and existed and not altered for so many years, whereas the zoning ordinance has been amended since. We didn't really, just because of the case in front of you, we didn't do a full-on analysis of what could be non-conforming or not. But that kind of review takes place during the site plan review portion of the process. So yeah, it's just my recommendation that, you know, if it's something you truly care about, then please put it in the conditions of approval.
Okay.
I have a question. So if we restrict the site plan approval to say this, then it comes down to the fact of the particular building doesn't have enough parking spaces for whatever reason for workable space. Do they then have to come back?
They
in
would need
front
to
of
come
us?
back in front of you, yeah.
Okay.
But the way the development process works a lot of the time is that
They'll work it along.
they might identify something early on that they're just not meeting very clearly, and they just want to get in front of you for that variance immediately.
That's
So,
the reason we're here.
there's different ways, though, that people choose to go through the process, but that's one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Because there were so many comments from the public last week, I think, or last month, I think we should open up a public hearing. So if there's anybody here wishing to speak. So it is 7:45. I'm going to open up a public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to speak on this request? Just please introduce yourself and state your address.
I'm Jeff Rathgab, 927 Hendrickson. We live 2 houses down from where this is going to be. Our biggest thing is that they say, yes, they're going to have wonderful air quality. We're not going to hear any noise. There's going to be roll-offs and tow trucks dropping cars. We've had body shops there and nearby. There's 2 within the 14-mile and 15-mile stretch of Rochester Road. This will fit in between 2 existing body shops. Once that happens, once they're in there, and suddenly we find that we're smelling paint and we're hearing noises, we're done. The genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back. So we're saying, look, the homes have been there in some cases over 100 years. Obviously, we haven't lived there that long, but this building got put in. Somehow they got their variance at some point. Now would be the time to fix that in a way. If someone wants to come and get a new variance, we're against it. The variances were put there to protect the neighborhoods, and that's what we're asking you to do.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate these gentlemen, what they've said, the last guy here too, but I'm sure they don't have a body shop in their backyard, and that's what you're asking us to put up with. And we just appreciate not having that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Good evening. Jennifer Burney, 925 Hendrickson. I live just west of 927. And like myself and my close neighbors, I hear it, I smell it, I see it. It's very distracting. It's upsetting. Young children, chemicals, fumes, sounds. You cannot guarantee at a collision shop that we're not going to hear air tools, paint fumes, tow trucks. I'll even go as deep as cussing and swearing, trash. And I don't know an arborvitae that's tall enough to reach over this 10-foot wall that's already there. And who's going to maintain that? Like Mr. Rathgab just said, once we're in, we're in. Who do we go to? We have to keep doing this. It's not fair. It's not in your backyard. I've been a resident for 13 years. And all I hear is car parts and tools and smells and trash. We don't want it. We don't need it. Kimberly Tire, somebody bought that. That's great. Gills, same respect. This place, honestly, without the variance, we would have never have known. I'd have been here years ago. We just got used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very sad. Especially with babies,
Mm-hmm.
dogs. I mean, we want to talk about fireworks. It's like a firework every day, all day long. And that's not going to change. And if you can't, you can tell me a car that's in a collision, with all due respect, I work in a huge insurance industry. They're going to need a tune-up. Period. You guarantee me there's not going to be any inconvenience to our livelihoods and our health. You got my vote. Other than that, we don't want them.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak from the public? Okay, it's 7:49 and I'll close the public hearing. To the residents' point, if there are issues that they have, the arborvitae die, there are some smells that they can't deal with, what would their recourse be?
So once there's a site plan approved, the individuals who had that site plan approved are responsible for maintaining it as approved. And so if arborvitaes die, if they fall down, they're responsible for replacing them as approved on their plan. When it comes to noise, if they're operating outside of our noise ordinance. So if they're making noise past that certain time, residents are encouraged to call a non-emergency dispatch number to have police, because our code enforcement don't work at 10 o'clock at night, to come out and inspect, and they can issue the ticket if there is sound after that time. The city itself doesn't monitor anything when it comes to fumes and smell. So that is more of a state mandate and review. So is there any other questions that I missed? Okay.
I do have a question, in reference to the collision shop and the zoning. What other types of businesses are allowable in this strip of Rochester Road?
Yeah, so I've got the ordinance in front of me right now. It's I1, so it is a light industrial district. Just reading the literal list right now. It's things like dry cleaning plants or laundries, family daycare homes, greenhouses, industrial clinics, kennels, laboratories, experimental film or testing, research, design, pilot, or experimental product, manufacturing and repair of electric or neon lights, light sheet metal products, manufacture or assembly of electrical appliances, electronic instruments and devices, radios, other manufacturing, compounding, assembling, manufacture, compounding, processing, packaging, more manufacturing of musical instruments, toys, stamps, pottery, ceramic, self-storage, storage facilities for building materials, sand, gravel, stone, lumber, warehouse, mini warehouse, wholesaling. That was a lot, but that was the principal permitted uses. So uses without.
So this collision shop would fall under manufacturing?
No, and then there's, so that was just the principal permitted uses, so that's just the uses that are permitted by right to happen without any board or commission approval. Then there's the special land uses, so those are the uses that get planning commission approval. That includes this use, the automobile repair garage and undercoating shop. It includes motels and motel courts. It includes outdoor storage of materials and supplies. It includes retail uses with an industrial character due to outdoor storage requirements or activities. So those are the special approval land uses which go before planning commission for approval. And that's part of their process is to go before planning commission for the special approval land use and their site plan. There's
So
that first step here for the variance.
I have a question in reference to the existing repair shop, collision shop. They would have had a variance on file?
So they could have been operating there before the ordinance was in place, which is likely the case. So if the ordinance became an ordinance, say 15 years ago, and they've been operating there as some type of auto collision shop before that, they're a non-conforming use. So if
So they're grandfathered in.
yes, they're not conforming.
Okay.
And so if they, like a new owner came in, would they have to get a variance?
Yeah, so the reason this is all triggered is because there's a provision in the special land use section of the ordinance that really essentially ties the special land use to an owner and to kind of the operating conditions that the company operates by. So essentially the reason that they have to go back before the special approval land use process is because they are changing ownership, they're changing name of business. And to be honest, I don't know exactly what the repair circumstances are that are different, but I believe there's something different going on with the type of service they're providing than the previous specialty Corvette shop. So because of these conditions, they need to go back before the special land use approval process. And that being said, those special approval land uses are also involve a site plan. And that means different kinds of, like I said, different kinds of site aspects and elements are reviewed under site plan review. And also one of those standards is the whole 200 foot from residential requirement. And so they pointed that out initially right away. They said, we can't comply with the 200 foot requirement because we're literally abutting. So we'd like the variance, as the first step in the process. And that's why they're there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Say one more. Or is it too late to?
Sure, you can approach.
I just wanted to say that we have no issues whatsoever. I totally understand how these neighbors feel about this. And I've done this hundreds of times, and to the best of my knowledge, I've never had anybody come back and like have to shut the business down or even be in like severe compliance of anything, non-compliance of anything. We have no issues with any kind of conditions you want to put on this to hold them accountable, because they have to operate it. Like, I know they will operate it, but if you want to put conditions on there saying, they can't have tow trucks delivering after certain hours, if you want to put conditions on there about have to stay in compliance with all the noise and ordinances and state air quality ordinances or requirements, whatever, kind of condition that you deem worthy or necessary to make this, work better for everybody. We have no issues with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can we put conditions in during the site plan review, or does it have to be done now?
So the conditions that you would give are for your guys' own approval. And so when the planning commission is reviewing it, they'll take those into consideration as well, if they want to do that. But there's some characteristics that you guys could put condition on that the planning commission could as well. And if you guys don't put a condition on something, the planning commission could still do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say during the special land use review, planning commission needs to look at things like neighborhood compatibility, neighborhood, make sure things like performance standards like noise, dust, whatnot are adequately taken care of. They look at, some of those more discretionary standards that go into a planning and zoning review. I think really your role is to condition anything that has a direct link to the 200 foot, proximity to residence rule. Like, I wouldn't put a condition that says like the sign out in front can't be greater than 3 feet tall or something like that, because it really doesn't have a direct tie to the request at hand. That's why I think the arborvitae and planting strip as presented in the site plan does have a direct tie to the request at hand in trying to ease that harshness of the proximity.
I guess what I'm saying is, so we have time to formulate conditions on the next step during the. next step. We
On
don't
the
have
use
to-
itself.
Right, we don't have to just push this down the road.
Exactly, and as your role as the liaison, some of the items you talk about may not fit the ZBA's approval and their contingencies, but there's stuff that you would bring up when and if the time comes in front of the planning commission for special land use and their site plan.
Right, okay.
I'm sorry, that I've closed the public hearing. Are there any other comments from the board?
I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there an exit from the parking lot onto any side street, or is it all onto Rochester?
I think it's all shown onto Rochester.
That's what I thought. I'm just
Yes.
double checking. Okay.
There's a 6 foot.
Because
right now.
there's a fence, it looks like okay. There's an 8 foot high chain link fence with black privacy slats. I didn't know if that had a gate on it.
So now that we have a new ordinance of 6 foot CMU or cement wall, that would change, right?
Not For that, so they already have an existing masonry wall along the residential properties. The fence that you may be referring to would be facing from Rochester Road. That would be reviewed differently. And be part of the site plan.
Sorry, Mr. Carpenter, my point wasn't the fence.
Oh,
I was just trying to find out whether or not traffic goes near the homes.
It's only off of Rochester.
Thank you.
Road. Yes.
Oh, I did have a question.
Okay.
In reference to next steps, if we discuss that, is the site plan already in line for the planning commission to review, or is it still pending this review and approval because you're still pending the purchase of the property, correct?
It's fully pending right now. We haven't had any other pre-application meetings with them or any conversations. The only conversations that have been about the variance.
And planning commission meetings are also open to the public. Is that a true statement?
That is correct. And then, so for regular site plans, there's not a public hearing, but because this is a special land use, the residents within the vicinity of 300 feet will get notice again for special land use to participate in public comment.
Okay.
And their use is contingent on the variance, the special land use, and then the subsequent site plan.
And a variance would be tied to the property, or would it be tied to this particular transaction?
Yeah, so it's tied to the property. I think just trying to remember how we discussed this last time. I think we touched on it, but it's tied to the property as long as it's initiated. So it needs to be acted on. And I believe the acted on rule, the initiating rule, means that it needs to obtain a building and planning approvals within a year of the granting of the variance. If the variance is granted tonight by the board and the applicants run off and never do anything again, and we never see them again, then it would expire after 1 year, and any subsequent reoccupier of the space would need to come back essentially for the same variance request. But once they obtain, I believe it's building permits or building approvals, then yep, they're underway. The variance will run with the land.
And then should Caliber Collision want to sell in a year or two?
Then
Then we have a new change of ownership and then we need a new variance.
not for the
again?
variance, for the confusing part is for the special land use, yes. But not for the variance. The variance would run with the land, no matter who the owner is, or no matter if there is a new special land use.
So the caveat here is the special land use for the collision shop.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of the kind of the case. Is the fact that the special land use requires resubmittal when a new owner comes in or when conditions change from the prior use.
So an affirmative vote by us would give a collision shop could be placed there with the caveat that a use,
Any collision shop.
that a use, but
Special land use is
a
approved.
special land
Yeah.
use would have to be approved by the planning
Yeah,
commission.
still, the special land use would still need to be approved by the planning commission. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just essentially chipping off that first requirement on the list of tasks.
Okay. Okay. Okay, any other questions by the board? Before we take a vote, I just wanted to let you know, a full board here is 5 people. If the audience could please, hold the talking down. If you need to talk, you can go in the hallway, please. And a vote would need 3 members. Three of the 4 of us. So at any point before we take a vote, you can make the decision to table it in case we have a full board. I apologize, we don't have a full board again today. We need to work on that.
Yeah.
So, you're good? Okay. Great. If there's no other questions by the board, I entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the variance request for 850 North Rochester Road be approved because of the following. The practical difficulties are exceptional and peculiar to the property of the person requesting the variance and results from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. The practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return. Allowing the non-use dimensional variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering the public benefits intended to be secured by this article, the individual hardships that will be suffered by a failure of the board to grant a variance, and the rights of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance. The variance did not arise from the actions of the applicant or previous landowner. The requested variance is not based solely on financial need or circumstances. I would also like to ask for the contingency to be made that and if you could help me, Andy, I'm not sure how to state it, but the plantings along the neighborhood, I know that it hasn't gone in front of planning yet, but needs to be similar to the drawing. I can't,
Yeah,
I mean, there's no definitive plan yet, but I don't want there to be 4-foot arborvitae. I want it to be,
Actually, the landscaping plan as presented to you is
yes,
within.
within reason. Yeah, I don't see where this plan. It doesn't say how big the arborvitae are. Right, and also the drawing, the 3D rendering is a little different than this engineering drawing, so that's why I'm saying.
if you have a moment, I could look at the zoning ordinance and see what the rule is for the minimum new planting height for a new,
Then that would be my contingency.
yeah. Let me just verify that there is such a requirement.
What's the existing wall size there now? That you said they were going to reuse? 10 foot.
It's. Not listed.
I see there's a requirement for a deciduous tree.
So they do have an 8-foot landscape bed, so I'm assuming that is an addition to any trees that would be planted. I'm assuming that section is part of that property as well, outside of the wall.
So the arborvitae would be planted within that 8-foot wide landscape bed.
Okay, so the drawing you had up earlier then is deceiving. Unless that's plants that are already there. Is that the case?
Those are plants already there
Okay.
on the neighboring property.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So you might want to say, I think 3 to 4 foot high is generally a safe height for a brand new.
I'm gonna say with the contingency of the maximum or the recommended, what's our new ordinance called? The landscaping ordinance, the recommended or maximum height plantings in the 8-foot bed.
Yeah, you could say with a arborvitae height as recommended in the zoning ordinance.
With the contingency of the arborvitae height being what the height recommended in the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
Okay. Got that, Nick?
I'll have to probably go back and watch, but yeah.
You're gonna call me later. Yeah,
It might not hurt to just repeat the condition. Just so it's clear in front of us.
I'll try and cover that if that's okay.
That
Did
the
you want-
screen
Yeah, go ahead.
and graph / green belt is similar to as presented. Examples provided was an arborvitae.
And with the.
built at the recommended height in landscaping ordinance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is that what you were
Yes.
intending, Jen? Okay,
Yes, sorry.
thank you.
Sorry that I didn't ask that before. That was very inelegant and I apologize.
No, it's just, yeah, it's great to just have it, repeated and clear what the expectation is. So thank you.
Okay. Are there any additions to Jennifer's motion? Any other conditions the board would like to see? Okay.
No.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Nick, could you call the roll, please?
Miss Cindy Smith,
No,
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Miss Perkins.
yes,
Okay, motion carried.
Shame on you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Again, you guys can participate in the planning so that the neighbors will be happy.
Not your backyard.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. I'm gonna come and grab my hands in your backyard.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is 436 to 456 West 14 Mile, a variance from the requirements of section 4.3.B.6 to permit a multiple family apartment dwelling with a density of 25 total rooms exceeding the 24 room maximum density requirement. Is there somebody here to speak on that?
Yes, I'm Calabat Engineering, on behalf of the property owner. Business address for the record is 31333 Southfield Road, Suite 250 in Beverly Hills, Michigan. So it's wonderful to see you guys all again tonight. Sorry about the comments there. Sometimes people are not always happy when things don't go their way. So we're back in front of you guys tonight, as if you may recall. And before I get started, I got a quick question for you guys. We're still at 4 members. Is that because there's a vacant seat to fill the 5th one?
So it's a 5-member voting board, but there's 2 alternates. And so there's full 5 members, 2 alternates, but there's 1 vacancy alternate position. So,
So it doesn't count as a vacancy.
Right. right.
Because it's an okay, so it's again 4 just because of attendance, right? Not a matter of we're okay.
Correct.
You said we got to do better on that, and I thought that meant we're trying to fill some positions. So I just
Oh, no, well, we apparently need to fill a
Alternate.
but
You live in Clausen, would you like to?
I don't. No, I don't. But I've always thought about potentially joining my local board.
we have an attendance problem.
Yes, yes,
That's what we need to correct.
that's okay. That can be worked on a lot easier than hiring at this point. So again, we're back tonight to discuss our density variance, and a couple of things that we provided. Some additional material. We were looking to get some market studies to kind of show the demand, and I apologize, we don't have those today, but a lot of the things that we're seeing from a market perspective is really between rental and ownership properties. We're seeing a larger spike in demand for, rental properties as home ownership becomes, a little bit more expensive these days. And I kind of use myself as an example, and, a lot of my colleagues and peers. So I recently got married about 5 years ago. My wife and I were looking for a home. This is, 2018. At that time, just about everybody my age, all my friends that were getting married and starting families, they were looking to buy a home right when they got started, right when they got married, because interest rates were low. House values were, reasonably lower. And at that time, getting a mortgage for, a modest home was pretty comparable to a lot of rental rates that we were seeing. So myself and a lot of our friends, we said, well, why are we going to spend money on rental? And it makes more sense if our payments are the same, not including interest and, taxes and insurance, but principal and interest paying the same as rental rates, you might as well go for home ownership. And it was really a blessed time for that generation. Fast forward 5 years later, which is not a lot of time. And I'm watching, my brother and some of the younger kids starting to go through the same process, my younger cousins. And I'm seeing the prevailing trend is they're all looking at rental first, because owning a home at that stage in their life is very difficult. Interest rates are double what they were 5 years ago. Payments are a lot higher than rental properties. So, new young families are buying or are renting apartments and condos and things like that to start out when they can, build themselves up. They can kind of build up savings until they're ready to afford home ownership. This is a trend we're seeing kind of across the board, across the nation and I truly think, my family's been in construction and development, real estate development for over 20 plus years. And home ownership is starting to go down significantly. And as we continue, as the future of this country goes in this direction, you're going to see that it's going to be a lot harder. So high quality, affordable rental properties are going to be a demand for communities. That's exactly the property and the product we're bringing here to Clawson. There is a demand for it. The zoning is set for that and is asking for it here. We're looking for a variance and waiver of 112 square feet out of 1,000. And again, I want to kind of bring those numbers back into perspective because we feel that by granting this variance, you're really doing more of a service to your community than a disservice. One of the things that'll evidence of that is we've been no stranger to the public hearing as well. We've been blessed and fortunate with the residents who come out and spoke at all the public hearings for this project. We've attended 3 planning commission meetings, Mr. Carpenter knows, and now our second variance meeting. So 5 meetings total. And after 5 meetings, they're not here anymore. One of the reasons why they're not here anymore is because their primary issues have been addressed and satisfied. Dissimilar to the case before us where they're still here and those folks will probably be there throughout the entire process. A lot of the main concerns we had from our residents was screening. We want to make sure that we've got, proper height screening, the walls heights, the wall materials. We had it arborvitae, 6 to 8 foot tall. If you guys get to the planning commission, 6 feet is like bare minimum. 8 to 10 is more mature arborvitae heights for planting. So we did add 8 foot tall arborvitaes in there to help bring a more of an evergreen screen. We've got a very harmonious relationship with the properties around us. The zoning classification for multifamily along 14 Mile with the single family behind it is met by the proposed project. We've resolved encumbrances with our neighboring property, the Fellowship Bible Church. Included in your packet was a cross access easement that we recently obtained. So we reciprocated an easement between our property and their property by allowing the current encroachment onto our property to maintain, granting them easement and access, legal right to actually use it, as opposed to just we've been using it and nobody's complained thus far. In return, they granted reciprocal easement, which we've highlighted. And I think it's
just real quick, that was not actually provided in the packet, so I do have it. That will be included in the minutes, and then I'm going to share it on the screen right now, just so they're aware of what you're referring to.
Okay.
So
okay, yeah,
I'm going to share
perfect.
that.
I was like,
Yeah,
I just didn't want to get too far, so let me share that.
No worries. But the reason I bring it up and the relevance that I think it has is that it's added an effective land area to the proposed property, which 2,235 square feet far exceeds what we're short on the density requirement there. It exceeds 112 square feet that the property is short. The biggest thing that I think denial of this variance would do is it would deny residency for one other occupant, one other tenant. It's not so much about the developer and their project here today. Their project is viable. They're unfortunately loss of a unit would be loss of revenue. We've talked about from the last meeting that unfortunately, due to the way that the density is calculated, they would be going down from 25 rooms down to 23 rooms with the loss of a unit, because both 1-bedroom units and 2-bedroom units quantify as 2 rooms in the density calculation. So the denial of the variance would be a greater disservice to the public by denying access to that additional unit for potential renters, potential occupants within the city. It's not going to impact the developer's ability to develop the project. Yes, it might impact his bottom line a little, per se, but really the greater negative impact is going to be in the occupant that they've got to turn away. Most of the multifamily units are fully occupied in the city of Clawson, including their Mount Elliott Park development that they recently did. We expect the same thing to happen here, full occupancy. We've also provided, Nick, I'm not sure if you can flip to some of the aerial images of some of the other multifamily units within Clawson. And we've, kind of shown that the raw square footage of this land at just about 25,000 square feet is kind of a median square footage for the multifamily units and developments in Clawson. You've got these units that are right down the street that are, 16,000 square feet each. You can see that their site plans are, they're much tighter than what we have, proposed tonight. So although the land area is short, that 112 square feet, I think that the design, the layout of the project, the use of currently paved spaces with the, access from the neighbors and providing 2 additional parking spaces, from that drive is a unique use of this land. I think that, it's the fact that we are able to meet the parking requirements and all the landscape and buffer requirements, but are just a little bit shy of that overall land requirement from the density is really the hardship and the unique character of this request. So again, we humbly request your positive consideration for this variance request. And, I know the comment was made previously that, we've granted a lot of variance requests in the past for extra density or more density than is needed. And I'd urge you guys to, consider the weight of this request independent, as all variances should be, is, independent of any other that's granted or requested. And I think that, the size, the 102 square feet versus, to granted versus turning away a family or potentially young couple or a new occupant, a new resident into Clawson. I think that more service is done to the community by granting the variance than by denying variance. And really here to answer any other questions you guys might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
Can we go back to the exhibit that wasn't in our package for the shared easement?
Yeah, and just be clear, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. This building here is the church. This, I don't know if you can see my cursor move.
Mhm.
This is the current home where they are proposing their project, and then to the left of that is where the project will be. So to the north of the church is the easement Mr. Calvet was referring to allow the access behind the church and then between the church and the proposed development.
Yeah, because there's 2.
So not
parts.
behind the proposed development.
No.
So is the easement to the west, was that granted by prescription then, or is that an easement too?
Yes, there are 2 easement exhibits. So this easement exhibit does not show the easement that was granted to the church. This is just showing the church's property that was granted to the proposed project. Thereby, that's been adding some additional usable square footage.
So that the shaded box is actually what you guys are granting.
Are receiving
Oh, you're receiving it.
that.
Oh.
Yes, the granted portion is, you see the white shading
That's
right
what I
there.
saw, yeah.
Yeah, that's the portion that we'd be granting to the church as an easement. So that they can, circumnavigate their building.
Is that a new easement then?
It is because it was never there before.
Right.
It was an encroachment by that neighbor to that property. So it's an unresolved encroachment on title.
So are you accessing your property through that easement?
Only ingress for 2 parking stalls or for fire and emergency access.
Okay.
Primary access is from 14 Mile. And there's no possibility for anybody to exit out onto the side street there. It's a one-way drive aisle in from there and around that church.
And the easement was a contingency of the planning commission, as well as having those 2 parking spots over there was something they reviewed and approved.
Okay.
Nick, can you roll your hand around the parking spots?
So the 2 parking spots are gonna be about right there on the north.
To the left more, they'll access from
Let me
there.
Unshare my screen and I can share it. And I think I might be able to pull up a better image for you.
Site plan, yeah.
Yeah, it's in, the site plan's in the packet too.
But I'll show it just so it's on the screen as well for the public. So give me a moment when I'm going back to that.
Is there a
Now,
barrier?
what happens if there's 2 people already in that parking space and I'm driving my car up there and I think I want to park there? And then somebody behind me pulls in too because they want to park there. And then now you've got a line of cars backing up along this easement.
Well, if
Sure.
those parking stalls are occupied, I mean, you'll see it when you're pulling in there. So you'll just pull left, come around the church, make a right on 14 Mile, make a right into the main parking lot, and you'll come in the main parking lot. Most people are gonna come into the main parking lot first.
So you can circle back behind the church.
Yeah, I mean,
So is that little walkway that was initially provided with the circle there, is that still there?
that's proposed, yes.
So that's not a thoroughway through someone's
No,
backyards
no.
that's existing?
No, no, no.
Okay.
No. That's a proposed kind of path for the people that park there to be able to walk that sidewalk around to the front of the building.
Okay.
So that if the reality is those 2 parking spots are probably gonna be the last 2 filled in the parking lot. You know, you're gonna be like, oh, now I gotta park, unless you might live in that first
that
unit
corner.
there, then you might prefer to park there.
Well, I'm just concerned for church getting out or whatever services are next door.
Yeah,
And I don't want that to be a thoroughfare for
No.
people to exit easily.
yeah, that was
and such.
a concern of the planning commission as well. They did not want to have any type of connection from the church's property to the main parking lot of this property,
Okay.
which there is not, there will not be. So if they cannot get in through there, they've got to come back out to 14 Mile and get back into the site from the main approach.
And then they asked for these 2 parking spaces. Now, is that to accommodate the 25 total rooms they're requesting in accordance with the ordinance?
Yes, so the parking complies with the ordinance as presented.
So they've already,
They've already gone through that with planning commission.
thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I do not.
Good. Thank you.
I do have a question. What's your occupancy at the Elliott Street Apartments?
100%. They're full.
100%?
Yeah, they got a wait list.
How long is your wait list?
2
2
months.
months? Okay. Did you check the occupancy in the rest of the multifamily in Clausen?
No, I mean, we don't have access to that information. If they don't own it, they don't have access to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do know that the Clausonian just started leasing this week.
And I did hear from the owners that they had a pretty heavy wait list before they went public for leasing. So
Mhm.
they had I think into the triple digits of people interested.
Mhm.
So
I mean,
Okay.
it's similar to what I've seen, not just in Clausen, but other communities as well.
Mhm.
People it's trying to get on wait lists.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
You know.
All good, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Is there anybody here wishing to speak from the public on this case? Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the board? Right. I would just say that I work in this industry and there is a huge need for affordable housing and housing everywhere. He makes a really good point that mortgage rates are enormous now. Housing prices are enormous. It's really hard for people to buy their first home. And it would be really great if we gave them options here in Clawson to move to, so. That's my opinion. There any other comments from the board?
The public hearing was closed.
I never opened one because there was nobody here.
Oh, okay,
I wasn't quite sure if that gentleman was
okay.
with that group or not.
Well, Madam Chair, I would make a motion to,
Before you go there, Cindy, I just want to make sure you know that because we're, there's only 4 of us here. And we're a 5-member board. 3 of us would have to vote in the affirmative to pass the variance. So are you okay with us moving forward?
Yes.
With the vote? Okay. Great. Okay, Cindy, sorry.
that's okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve the variance from the requirements of section 4.3 B.6 to permit a multi-family apartment building with a density of total 25 rooms, exceeding the 24-room maximum density requirement. The findings of fact are, number 1, the practical difficulties are exceptional and peculiar to the property of the person requesting the variance and the results from the conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. Number 2, the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than a mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return. Number 3, allowing the non-use dimensional variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering the public benefits intended to be secured by this article, the individual hardships that will be suffered by a failure of the board to grant a variance, and the rights of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance. Number 4, the variance did not arise from the actions of the applicant or previous landowner. Number 5, the requested variance is not based solely on financial need or circumstances. And number 6, I would like to point that the Planning Commission had already reviewed the parking and they had already complied with the 25 total rooms. Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Okay. Right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance. Nick, can you please call the roll, please?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Ms. Perkins,
No.
Ms. Diane Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Cindy Smith.
Yes,
Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, lost my agenda here. Is public discussion, items not in the agenda, seeing nobody in the public.
There's no public.
Any other business? Okay,
I have just a question, like, so as far as like how the room is, how that room formula works, where can I find that exactly? Is it?
It's in the zoning ordinance.
We can provide that to you, to all of you, that way you're aware of it.
It's just, yeah, it's
And it was in the staff report too. We did provide the kind of the excerpt of that ordinance.
I think I do recall it. So it's like 1.5 or for the economy or the for the 1 bedroom's is it 1 room?
1 bedroom is, or
1
one,
or 2 rooms.
yep.
So there are 2 rooms.
So a 1 bedroom dwelling unit is considered 2 rooms. An efficiency unit is considered 1 room.
That's it, okay.
and then a 2-bedroom unit is considered 2 rooms.
Yeah, correct. So
that doesn't make sense. It really,
it's definitely a point that we're kind of tracking in that some of our ordinance.
Yeah, it's something that we'll be, I think, talking about a little bit, at least the master plan and with the planning commission, just because that calculation is unique, how you consider a 1 bedroom too. But every city has that differently, just however they want to have their ordinance read. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It's just how the community wants to have multifamily viewed.
Just, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, it gives them incentive to do 2 bedrooms and no 1s. And so if we're looking for a nice mix
of choices for people to choose from, it disincentivizes one bedroom units
Yeah.
because you get penalized.
Mhm. Which increases price point and increases all of that too.
Mhm.
So I heard you mention some communities, they formulate it where it's one bedroom is 1.5. Is that what you said? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I've seen all sorts of different kinds of, I've seen formulas kind of like this.
Isn't that what they're looking at with the new survey and the master plan update?
Yeah, we're just
Just getting feedback on to see what people would like.
Yeah, we're looking to see how different uses should be regulated and policy changes, you know, what uses should entail policy changes. Some ordinances have like a square footage of number of units per certain square footage of total land, or you know, there's a lot of different ways communities have kind of created density caps.
So I work in California, in some of our projects, and they have density bonuses
Yeah,
also. I'm not sure if you see that. in
some
Michigan.
ordinances do. I know Ann Arbor does that. Where you can build another story if there's 20% affordable housing in a certain area median income. You know, bonuses like that are in some ordinances. I know Ann Arbor does something like that. They're not super prevalent in Michigan yet, in my opinion.
Mhm. Mhm. They'll do density bonuses for affordable and senior.
Nice.
Mhm.
Is that pertaining to more structure? Or is that like, is there other like financial incentives? Like how, can you just give me an
It's
example?
most
of
like
those?
a community would give you density bonus. So you
Okay.
could build more on a smaller
Okay.
area.
Okay, so. all right,
They-
so
they-
more-
the-
more structural and, yeah, so you can build up or,
Mhm.
you know, you're forgiven on setbacks and whatnot.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cool.
Something we're tracking to Joe and I and Nick, just as we try to figure out the kind of content to look for and consider in the master plan update, right?
Mhm. Okay.
Cool.
All right. The next item on the agenda is staff report and training opportunities.
So not a ton to report, just wanted to say that the master plan survey is still open. We're probably gonna be closing that at the end of the month. So if you haven't taken it, please do. And if you have the link to send out to your friends and family in the community to get some more feedback. In the staff report, there is a little update on all the variances that have been approved over the last 12 months roughly. And so if you have any questions on those variances, I'd be happy to answer them or anything in general.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there's a QR code you can,
Yes, and we do have a fly, yeah.
the flyers out there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else for tonight?
Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, the motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right,
All right.
motion carried. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
So